Welcome into PFT OT. This is the program where we talk about the things that we either didn't get to during PFT Live or would have liked to have spoken about at greater length. And much of the focus was the teams that jumped in and committed money unofficially to a bunch of different players right out of the gates on Monday. But, Chris, plenty of teams are on the sidelines, sitting on their hands and waiting and waiting and waiting. And typically it's the smart teams that find that discipline where they don't jump in and start spending money.
Yeah, it jumped out to me. I mean, yes, smart teams are teams that already have a plethora of really good players, that they don't have these desperate holes that they need to fill immediately, right? But, yeah, I mean, after what we saw on Monday, just the absolute flirting frenzy and all the players that were being signed, I mean, my head was turning quicker this year than any year I can ever remember. But, yes, I sat there and go, okay, but let's look at the teams that we haven't seen do anything yet, right? I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs, they got Tyrann Mathieu. Okay, I forgot about them. But New England Patriots, Houston Texans, Baltimore Ravens, Chargers, we've seen nothing from them. The New Orleans Saints, the Rams, the Dallas Cowboys. So, yes, there's a lot of teams out there that I think believe or live in the credo of, like, you know, value free agency, and they almost wait for the second week to come about to find those value type guys.
Or not at all, because there is that sensitivity to making sure that you lose more unrestricted free agents than you acquire. That's how you unlock compensatory draft picks, and the best teams have figured out how to work the system to ensure that they always get those extra draft picks, those guys they can groom for 4 years at low value, relatively high in the draft. You can get some good players, especially a year like this one where there is a very rich middle class of talent that will be going in rounds 2, 3, 4, and 5. And yeah, it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it. And it's easier for the good teams to do it because the bad teams, Chris, I think they get caught up in that urgency to make the fan base think they're trying to get better.
Agreed.
Because if you're not out there spending, then the people are like, oh, what are you doing? Aren't you trying to get better? Well, we'd like to get better, but this isn't the way to get better. How many Super Bowl champions have ever been the champions of free agency? It never happens.
No, it does not. I mean, I think that's a very valid point. And hey, listen, I always look at New England, and I just think about them. And, man, it's been very few times in the history of this great dynasty where they've made a power play move early on in free agency. I mean, Stephon Gilmore is really like the only guy I can even think of. Adalius Thomas, I guess, back in 2007 are like the only two guys through this great run where I can say, oh, wow, that was a first week of free agency kind of big-time signing. Everything else is wait, let's find value. We don't have to make it all about, well, we have all these great players on our team. How about we just have a whole lot of good players to fill in all the holes? And that's the route New England's take, and maybe some other teams are taking notice of that too.
Last year for the Chicago Bears, it wasn't free agency that made a big difference for the team. It was a trade that was made right around Labor Day weekend. When Khalil Mack became available, the Bears pounced. They paid for it dearly, both with dollars and with draft picks, but they have cleared some cap space, according to Field Yates of ESPN, $11 million generated by converting $13 million of Khalil Mack's base salary and roster bonus into a signing bonus. Now, who knows what they're going to do with that $11 million? And the Bears are a team that really could benefit from kind of one big all-in move like the Patriots going after Stephon Gilmore a couple of years ago. So you just wonder, are the Bears thinking of doing something sooner than later? It's not accidental that they did all this now. There had to be a reason for it, and we'll find out in the coming days whether there is some specific player that they are targeting that could really push the Bears to the next level.
Yeah, no, exactly right. I mean, maybe is it them just trying to find extra money to pay a guy like Adrian Amos, who's a free agent safety that's out there? Or are they looking
He's signing with the Packers. That just came through. He's signing with the Packers, so take him off the board.
There that goes. Okay, so, yes, what are they trying to do? The Bears are one of those teams that when you look at them and evaluate them, they don't have many holes. I mean, there's a reason that they were, one of the best teams in football last year. I mean, offensive line solid, got the quarterback in place, receivers, running running backs. I mean, of course, the defensive front seven special. The secondary's pretty good. So the Bears don't need a lot here to get over the hump. I'm be interested to see what kind of play or move they make. I mean, there was talk that they might trade a Jordan Howard and that they might get in some running backs conversation here. I don't imagine that happening. But either way, Ryan Pace, Matt Nagy, that era has kind of been exciting to this point. I'm kind of excited to see what they want to do with this extra money they're trying to free up.
I feel like Matt Nagy is committed to a running back by committee approach. We saw more use of Tariq Cohen last year, less use of Jordan Howard. And as Howard gets closer and closer to the expiration of his rookie deal, it doesn't make any sense to pay him the kind of money he would want if you are going to spread his touches among multiple running backs. So maybe you move Howard and you get a young guy round 3, 4, wherever he comes in, you pair him up with Cohen and you get what you can for Howard. I'd be shocked if there's like an all-in move for Le'Veon Bell. I really don't see that happening for the Bears. I just don't think that's the way they're constructed now, and I think that they can get to a point where they move the ball consistently without having all the eggs in the Le'Veon Bell basket. But the Bears have that opportunity with that cap space from the MAC restructuring where if they do want to go out and just pick off one guy, one big name, do something to create some buzz, to create some anticipation, and to put everyone on notice that we are not going away, that last year's division championship was not a fluke. All right, the Arizona Cardinals are still dealing with the question of whether they're going to take Kyler Murray with the first overall pick and what do they do with Josh Rosen and Charlie Casserly. You know, typically, as the saying goes, when you've reached rock bottom, stop digging. Casserly has found a shovel and a pick and other tools because now after trashing Kyler Murray last week and taking a ton of justifiable criticism for it, Casserly was on NFL Network recently and he was attacking the work ethic of Josh Rosen, the guy who would be traded if the Cardinals draft Kyler Murray. Doesn't work hard enough, doesn't study enough, doesn't connect with teammates, goes off the game plan. Josh Rosen, when you get to your new team, you find out what time the janitor comes in, then you come in and open the place up. The Cardinals have pushed back. And look, I didn't hear any criticism of Rosen last year. I know there were concerns before he was drafted, but there's always that crap that gets thrown out there. I didn't think there was an issue with Rosen. Where's this coming from?
Well, I don't know. I mean, where's anything Charlie Casserly has said lately coming from? I don't know. I mean, last week he kind of puts out a lot of bad propaganda against Kyler Murray. Then a few days later, he tells everybody he's got him rated higher than he did Patrick Mahomes coming out in the draft. I just know me. If I had friends telling me that a guy was horrible in meetings and no leadership and these are people I trust, I wouldn't make comments like, oh, he's better than the best quarterback in football arguably right now when he was coming out. That just doesn't line up. And then to this, yes, I don't know either what to say about it. I certainly have heard none of those rumors about Josh Rosen. I mean, you heard some of these things, as far as maybe being a little bit more of a privileged kid and things like that at UCLA, but I didn't hear anything about work ethic, certainly. And I feel like those are kind of the rumors to what we talk about, even with Kyler Murray, that we usually hear in our business. You and I both know a lot of people. We kind of usually hear little inklings of things like that as a year goes on, if it does ring true. And I haven't heard anything along those lines. So, of course, with Charlie right now, I'm throwing the challenge flag out there, and I don't know what to believe.
Now, the bottom line may be, the joke's on all of us because we're talking about Charlie Casserly on a regular basis after multiple years had gone by where we weren't talking about him at all. So maybe he's discovered this hot take reservoir late in his career and realizes this is a way to get a lot more attention. We also spent time last week trying to figure out the motivation for trashing Kyler Murray. We eventually realized that this guy's got a side business where he prepares combine prospects for their interviews in Indianapolis, and there's a conflict of interest there if you're going to trash Kyler Murray. But we also kind of wondered, is he trying to help somebody by getting Kyler Murray to fall? And Chris, I'll go next level here with the cynicism.
Okay.
If you trash Josh Rosen and the Cardinals can't trade him, or they can't get enough to justify doing the Rosen for Murray swap, that's another way to make sure Murray is there beyond number one so you can help somebody either draft Kyler Murray, or if the Jets are the ones that Casserly is trying to help, put them in position where they can get a king's ransom by trading that Kyler Murray pick.
That's a really good thought, Mike. I never thought of it that way. I mean, I'm kind of just learning of this news in general, but still, that's a good one. You're right. I mean, it's hurting more of the chances of the Cardinals making moves or making things happen to where they can justify drafting a Kyler Murray. So, yes, in fact, that almost hurts their stock and what they want to do even more. So, I don't know. This is one of those where I'll have to talk to some people around the league and see if they've heard anything similar to that about Josh Rosen, and maybe I can get some answers there and give everybody an answer, later on in the week on PFT OT.
And one more point on this before we move on. I want to make it clear what our motivation here is. Our motivation is just to ferret out the truth.
Right.
And I've been very skeptical of any kind of opinions that get shared anonymously pre-draft. I'm always skeptical because people have agendas. Everyone has an agenda. And with Charlie Casserly, who isn't a reporter, he's an analyst, to be jumping in with both feet, reporting things, reporting these opinions in a very zealous and very determined and very unequivocal manner, it just raises red flags. And it's like, what's really going on here, and what is your agenda, apart from the obvious conflict of interest because he's got a side business where he gets paid to help guys get ready for the combine interviews. It just seems unusual. There would be somebody who would be so strident with these kind of opinions at a time when lies are abundant in the NFL, and you have to be extra vigilant to make sure you're not being lied to.
Yeah, no, exactly right. I mean, I think this is something we talked about a lot last week, but this is the time of the year where I don't ever listen to my friends, or if I do listen to them, it's purely just about, hey, I think this player is this good and this player is that good and everything like that, but no talk about, where do you have them valued at, or what do you think you're going to do in free agency, or what's your draft plan, because I know I'm going to get a BS answer when it comes to that. I mean, these are guys' livelihoods as far as, agents are concerned, front office GMs, head coaches, and they're not going to want to let you in on the little secrets that they're thinking about that are going to change or transform their organization. And I get that. So you got to almost approach it buyer beware and really kind of just listen to the information and take it as is.
All right, the Kansas City Chiefs are viewed as a team that will be very desirable for free agents to join. They have Patrick Mahomes. They're going to be contenders. But look, guys want to get paid, and there's only so much money to go around. And Mitch Morse, the team's starting center, now becomes the highest paid center in NFL history by joining the Bills. $44.5 million over 4 years, $26.5 million in guaranteed money. And I think it's just a basic numbers game. If you're Morse, you probably prefer to stay with Kansas City, prefer to have Patrick Mahomes with his hands on your rear end and win, right? But you win for your family, and sometimes you go to a team that maybe isn't as good as the Chiefs because that team can pay you a hell of a lot more money than the Chiefs can or will.
Yeah, that's right. You got to make business decisions as a player at some point. I'm sure Mitch Morse wanted to stay in Kansas City. I mean, nobody wants to pack up their house and move and do all that if they don't have to. But yes, Kansas City's got good problems to have. They got star players all over the field that they need to pay or going to have to pay here very soon in the future. Mitch Morse is one of the best centers in football. I think it's a brilliant move by the Buffalo Bills, who had offensive line issues last year. This will help out Josh Allen, the run game, everything that goes with it. It makes sense. But I think at the end of the day, too, with the Kansas City Chiefs, they do have to balance out of how they're going to pay Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones and Dee Ford, all those things that we've talked about. But every team has their kind of niche as far as, like, we talk about the Steelers, right, Mike? They're always amazing at finding receivers in the draft or free agency. Well, Andy Reid's kind of like that with offensive linemen. He's kind of one of those guys, like if there was such a phrase as an offensive line whisperer, he can find some gems in the middle of the draft or free agents that he's made into really good quality football players. So I think he's betting on himself a little bit on this one as well.
Yeah, he is an offensive lineman, right?
Yeah,
he just has that look. He's got that build,
exactly.
And maybe that allows him to speak the language. They go get some ribs in Kansas City, and they figure it all out. You're right for the Bills. This was a good move because Eric Wood had to retire abruptly last year for neck reasons.
Incognito went AWOL, right?
Yeah.
They lost Cordy Glenn, so they needed an upgrade at that position, especially if you have a franchise quarterback, which I believe they think they have in Josh Allen.
And the Chiefs better have a plan, because if you get a bad center who can't block and gets thrown into the legs of your starting quarterback, that's not going to be good for anybody. So whatever they do, and I'm going to trust Andy Reid to have a plan, they better have a plan, because there's a gaping hole now in the middle of the offensive line for the Kansas City Chiefs. There are multiple gaping holes in the Ravens' defense between the cutting of Eric Weddle and 3 other players who have chosen to leave via free agency. C.J. Mosley to the Jets, Terrell Suggs to the Cardinals, Zadarius Smith to the Packers. This is going to be a very different Ravens defense in the first year with Eric DeCosta as the general manager. There's been so much talk about the offense and how they're going to be run-based and Lamar Jackson and all that excitement. Do they have the depth? Do they have the talent to make up for the departures of all these players on the defensive side of the ball, Chris?
They do. They are one of the deepest defenses in football. So, again, hey, losing a guy like Suggs, Eric Weddle, it stinks because there's so many things they can bring to the team, the locker room. They're still good players. But, hey, they're getting up there in age. And they just did not want to pay those guys the money, I'm sure, that they were commanding at this point in their career. You know, Zadarius Smith, certainly going to hurt their football team, but you just can't keep everybody, okay? But nonetheless, there's a reason the Baltimore Ravens were one of the best defenses in football. 1, they're very well coached, but 2, man, they got a lot of players on that defense that I think can fill in and, hey, maybe not be as good as a Zadarius Smith or a C.J. Mosley, but I don't think they're going to fall off the earth. They're still going to be one of the 5 best defenses in sport. But, hey, I don't want to undervalue what C.J. Mosley is as a player. He's special. He really is. He's one of the best middle linebackers in sport. And Zadarius Thomas is, I don't want to say a superstar pass rusher, but on the fringe, right? Like one of those guys where we go, man, he makes some superstar-type plays from time to time, but he's really good at everything else as well. And it's just tough when you're a good team or got a good unit like that, like Baltimore does.
Yeah, and it's a weird time in the AFC North, Chris, because the Bengals are just kind of there. The Steelers feel like they're diminished, although they tend to overachieve when we expect them to not perform well. The Browns feel like they're building a powerhouse. I don't know where the Ravens fit into it, and I'm going to be very interested to see if this new approach works when you play teams multiple times. Look at what the Chargers did the second time they saw that Lamar Jackson-based offense.
Yep.
What will happen 2 years or in 2 games against the Steelers, 2 games against the Browns, 2 games against the Bengals? I think those are all very valid issues, and it could be that there is a power shift coming in the AFC North, and teams are going to be taking a backseat to the Browns, and the Ravens are going to be scrambling to catch up.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, the AFC North is certainly turning to be some sort of division. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But still, I look at Baltimore and go, man, the one thing they got is a lot of big people. I mean, the offensive line is one of the best in football. The defensive front 7 is still phenomenal. Got a pretty good secondary still with guys like, you know, Jimmy Smith being back there. Tony Jefferson's there. You know, they got Brandon Carr still in the conversation at corner. So they're not killed there. I still think the Ravens are going to be extremely competitive. They need to get another difference maker on the offensive side of the ball, Mike. That's where I would go, hey, I hope they can get one other playmaker so they don't have to always think about running the ball and just 4 yards in a cloud of dust and that style of play on offense all the time.
It would be something if they make that play for and land Le'Veon Bell, because really from a receiver standpoint, I mean, think about this.
Yep.
How do you get excited about playing for the Ravens if they're not going to throw the ball as much as other teams do?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
You're going to have to overpay receivers that you're not going to use as much to get them to come play for you, because you have to get them to buy into the idea that they're not going to see the ball very much.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. I mean, yeah, they're going to have to either overpay guys or they're going to have to find guys who feel like, you know, they've been cheated and not given that opportunity to go out there and show what they got. And that could be the other avenue in which they take as well. But either way, I think the Ravens are smart enough to know that they're going to have to add more to this offense, that they're not going to get away with the style of play they played at the end of the year. That will be kind of their baseline, yes, but I think Lamar Jackson will be a much improved passer in the 2019 season as well, to at least add that dynamic to the offensive shuffle there.
Well, we're smart enough to know when to shut up and let you get about the rest of your day. We appreciate your time here on PFT OT, PFT Live every weekday morning. And Chris, sources tell me that you're appearing on PFT PM today. Unless you're going to go back on your word, we're going to be having a conversation some point this afternoon. Is that still accurate?
I don't know. I don't think that is still accurate. I wasn't told that was definitely happening. I have a lot of things going on in my life right now, Mike. I mean, we'll see. If I have time for you, I'll make it happen.
Are you kidding?
If not,
are you
we'll
kidding
see.
or are you
We'll
serious?
See. We'll see.
We already booked it for today.
When? Who booked it? I don't have it on my schedule. I got it right here. So it must be your booking, and then you're agreeing to your own booking without asking me.
All right. Let's we're gonna have to do a review of the text messages, and we'll get to the bottom of this one after we say goodbye, and we'll see you again here tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody.
Goodbye. Everybody have a good day except for Mike Florio.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.